Hey friends, this is Darnell coming to you once again from the beautiful Bedrock Ministry studio with AM in America, our daily journey through Psalm 119, one day, one verse at a time. It is Tuesday morning. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. We're on verse 147 on our journey through Psalm 119. And in 147, the psalmist says, I rise before the dawning of the morning and I cry for help. I hope in your word. You know, if you've been staying with me, following few verses, the psalmist has been talking about crying out to the Lord for help, and you may be thinking, well, the psalmist is doing a lot of crying. Well, let me just talk about that for a moment, because it occurs to me that there's an awful lot of crying going on in this world in general, even today. I don't know if you've noticed, I certainly have, that there's a lot of negativity in the world. And there's a lot of problems. People have a lot of problems, and there's a lot of people that walk around in this life with unfortunately, in my estimation, a very negative view of life. Have you ever come across somebody, and I'm sure you have, it's almost a rhetorical question, that just seems to be always complaining and grumbling? Everything that comes out of their mouth is negative. Well, that is a form of crying. Crying doesn't always have to be shedding tears and sobbing. You know, grumbling and complaining all the time is a form of crying. I remember way back in elementary school, if you were one of those complainers, you would get the nickname of being a crybaby. So those kinds of expressions come about in our society for a reason. And there's a few others. You may have heard the term before, crying in his beer, talking about somebody who's maybe had just this terrible day. He's lost his job, he's lost his marriage, or something terrible has happened, and he goes and he just gets pie-eyed drunk, and somebody uses the expression, he's crying in his beer. Another expression of just crying. How about this one? A cry for help. Talking about somebody that has gone through a real rough patch, or has some real issues inside that they're trying to work through, and not everybody is comfortable talking about their issues, talking about their pains and inner things that are going on within them. And it's just a fact of life that if you don't articulate things, if you don't learn how to deal with those issues that are going on inside you, they will manifest themselves in other ways physically. And those can happen in a lot of different ways. You have people that commit heinous crimes. And people will look back on that later and say, you know, that was a cry for help. Or people, you know, we have all kinds of disorders in this world where people, you know, physically manifest behaviors and actions that are really just a way of that negative emotion coming out. It must come out somehow. And so people will look at that and say, well, that's a cry for help. So crying is just a release. That's what it is. The psalmist, in my estimation, is doing it the correct way, because God does not want us grumbling and complaining to one another. The Israelites got themselves in a lot of trouble, if you study the Old Testament, by doing that, grumbling and complaining about what was going on in their life, what God was doing, and where is God, and instead of bringing their complaint to God, they complained to one another, and we found out that God is not in favor of that at all. God certainly doesn't want us to bury our hurts and pains and vices, or to manifest them physically in some other negative way. What does God want us to do? He wants us to do exactly what the psalmist has done here. He says, I rise before the dawning of the morning and I cry out for help. I hope in your word. Think about that succession, that process there. He says, I bring my issues to you first, Lord, and then I put my hope in your word. I do it early in the morning, and then I go forward with my day. Let me read it in the Amplified. He says, I anticipated the dawning of the morning and cried in childlike prayer. I hoped in your word. So He says, I'm bringing my issues to you just as a small child does. He brings his issues to his parents. He trusts his parents emphatically to meet his needs. This is the will of God, my friends. Even Jesus in the New Testament, I'm going to turn over and just show you a couple quick verses to make my point. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus talking here. I'll read it from the Amplified. He says, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden and overburdened, and I will cause you to rest. I will ease and relieve and refresh your souls. What a promise, my friends. God, Jesus, who is the Son of God and God the Son, is saying, bring all your issues to me. He's inviting us. Bring them all, come to me with them, and I will give your soul rest. You know, that's certainly a wonderful promise, because we can vent our complaints to other people, but how many people can really help us? Jesus has all resources. There is nothing limited in terms of his ability to help us. Let me give you one more. To make my final point here, in 1 Peter 5:7, read it again in the Amplified. The Bible says, casting the whole of your care, all of your anxieties, all your worries, all your concerns, once and for all on him being Jesus, for he cares for you, excuse me, affectionately, and cares about you watchfully. So once again, we are exhorted in the word to bring all of our cares once and for all to him, because he watchfully and affectionately cares for us. My goodness. God watchfully and affectionately, he's watching. He already knows what your anxieties and cares are. It's not an issue of bringing them to him so that he will suddenly, the light will come on. He'll say, oh, I didn't realize you were going through that. No, he knows what we're going through, but he is waiting for us to bring all of that to him, lay it at his feet, knowing that he is well able. My friends, if you will do that, and do it early each and every day, bring all things to him, lay them at his feet, and trust in his word, I promise you that he will give your soul rest, and you can enter into your day in a much more peaceful and secure way. This is Darnell, coming to you from the beautiful Bedrock Ministry Studio.